Thanks, Rob. Thank you. Thanks, Rob. Motivating and entertaining. The pressure's on. Nice to be introduced by someone tall. Don't have to move the microphones. I specifically asked for Brendan to not introduce me for that reason. No, it's good to see that FAST is an equal opportunity employer. You even employ the little people. I know, he hasn't paid my bill yet, so that's not that smart, is it? I'm going to have a chat to you today about a lot of things, mainly about my career. Throughout my presentation to you, I'm going to talk to you about challenging yourself to do something different through your business and to make changes in your business. But it would be hypocritical of me to do that, and this is a little bit different to the stuff that Brendan and Rob have heard. It would be a bit hypocritical of me to do that and not be prepared to do the same thing myself. So I presented yesterday at this conference in Melbourne, and I'm letting you in on a trade secret here. So people like me get booked through agencies, and the lady from the agency who booked me came and listened to me. And I said to her at the end of the speech yesterday, is there anything that I can do differently or better? I'm always happy to get feedback. I pride myself on being coachable. And she said, yep, move away from the lectern. So today I'm challenging myself to move away from the lectern and away from the safety of this and my notes. And I'm going to stand out here and talk. Now, I've never done this before, so if I look a bit lost or if I fall off the stage, talk amongst yourselves until I gather myself up. So we'll see how we go. So I'm just going to check out where I start. Oh, that's right. So it is great to be here, and as I look around the room, I see lots of things that make me happy because the banking industry and netball have had a long history. When I was much younger, like last century, I played in the Commonwealth Bank Trophy. So if you're here from the Commonwealth Bank, I've just met a couple of people who are. Woohoo to you guys, well done. I now commentate on the ANZ Championships. ANZ Bank, if you're here, woohoo. I conduct coaching clinics for Macquarie Bank. Woohoo, well done. All the other banks, what are you doing? Get your checkbook out. I'm happy to talk to you at any point about putting your money into netball. It's a great place to put your money. But that's not what the FAST guys have got. And Brendan's like, come on, get to your stuff. So yeah, banking and netball always go together, which sort of, if I look at my career, perhaps I could think of it in terms of business, maybe banking. But it's interesting when you think about your businesses, and for me, my career is and was my business. A lot of people think that with athletes, that you are always preordained to be a superstar or to be a gold medalist or to play for Australia. Oh, well, they're always going to be good, you know, from a young age. And you could look at successful business people and say, oh, they were always going to be rich, they were going to be successful, they got the lucky breaks. But let me tell you, luck has nothing to do with your career. Luck has very little to do with your business. The harder you work, the luckier you get. You've all heard that. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that today. If you start at the start, for me, the 8-year-old Liz Ellis was not a particularly good business proposition. I only started playing netball by accident. One of my mum's friends rang her. Her name was Sheila. Not my mum, my mum's friend. Netball always has great chicks' names. So Sheila, yeah, like I've been coached by Norma and Joyce, and my netball career started with Sheila. So you go to Surf Life Saving and you've got Christy and Crystal and hoo-ha. You go to netball, there's Sheila, there's Norma, there's Joyce. You don't muck around. Women that you don't mess with. So Sheila rang Mum and said, would Liz like to play netball? And Mum said, no. She's not very coordinated, not very social, probably wouldn't be very good. Don't think she'd like it. So Sheila, being a woman who you don't say no to, rang Mum back about a week later and said, Margaret, I've just seen something on television. Did you know that 90% of kids who end up as juvenile delinquents have never played team sport? Now, coincidence is an amazing thing. Not so much luck, but coincidence. That week I had set a fire in my room at home. Copped a flogging from my dad in the process. That was in the bad old days. Mum had some concerns about me, thought I might become a pyromaniac. So she said to Sheila, yep, Liz can play as long as she can stop whenever she wants to. So 27 years later, I just decided to stop whenever I wanted to. And I'll get to that at the end. It won't take me 27 years to tell you about that. But really for me, netball was a bit of an accident at the start. So a lot of people could look at their careers and their businesses and say, well, I wasn't always preordained to be in this business. I wasn't always going to be in the mortgage business or the banking business or the finance business, but you're here. And that was the same with me for netball. I wasn't preordained to be there. I wasn't supposed to be there. Had I not lit a fire in my bedroom the Tuesday before Sheila rang, I may not have been there. But that's how it happened. But from the second I got on court, I absolutely loved it. Netball, in an instant, became my passion. I loved it because I love the team aspect. I love the competition. I'm inherently competitive. I like to win everything. Scrabble, social tennis, you name it, I like to win it. Yeah, my husband is a saint, but we'll get to him later. So I wasn't very good though at the start. I'd started netball by accident, and for the first couple of years I spent a lot of time on my knees and on my butt. But gradually I got better because I had this passion. I loved my sport, and I thought, right, if I can stay upright for most of the game, I might go somewhere here. So under 11s came along, and I went along to try out for the Hawkesbury rep team. I grew up in Western Sydney, and I point like that way like I know where Western Sydney is in this room. I don't know, it's out there somewhere. So I grew up in Western Sydney. And I turned up to the under 11s rep selections and got in. Woohoo! So I got to play netball for 3 days, 3 whole days, from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. at the state championships. I'd rather set my hair alight now, not my bedroom, than the thought of playing netball for 3 whole days at the state championships. But back then it was great. So the following year I turned up for the Hawkesbury under 12 selections. Don't worry, I'm not going to go through year by year the Hawkesbury selections. But I turned up for the under 12 selections thinking I was pretty good because I made it the year before. Like, whoa, I was pretty good. The under 11s, turned up, did the selection, and the way that netball selections go, some of you guys would have kids who have done it, any sport really, you turn up and you play against each other ad nauseum, and then we're at netball, so a larger lady in parachute tracksuit pants walks out with big thighs and goes, congratulations to the girls who've made it, here's the team, if you made it, well done, if you didn't make it, bad luck. And I'm like, whoa, yeah, bad luck for those who didn't make it. So she read the team out, no me. Hit my first hurdle, under 12s, wasn't in the team. Looked at my mum, ran up to my mum, burst into tears. Mum goes, stop crying, go and congratulate your friend Cheryl. See, another great netball name. Cheryl got in, you didn't get in, stop crying, dry up. I had a mother who was a bit like Dicko. Remember Dicko from Australian Idol? Yeah, a bit like him. She told me once that I was crying because I did a lot of crying when I was a kid. This has got nothing to do with your business, but I got home after school on Valentine's Day, and one girl had got a lot of cards and I got none. She goes, don't worry, you're not that pretty, but you got a nice personality. So you can imagine what my mum was like. Her and Dad did set my sister and I up pretty well. We're not allowed to have fat heads, which is good because I'm very much in danger of it. So I didn't get in the team, bawled my eyes out, had to go and say congratulations to Cheryl. I got in the car to go home, still crying, burst into tears. Mum goes, listen, you got to stop crying about this. It's just netball. In 10 years' time, it's going to be boys. It's the same thing. If you can't control yourself, you won't cope. And I'm like, oh, boys stink. I don't want to do boys. I want netball. Anyway, we had this conversation, and you've heard today from Colin about conversations. And for me, throughout my career, I've had some really crucial conversations that have really shown me the way almost. They've almost lit up the way. And we had this conversation about why you got selected and why you didn't get selected. And I was like, well, the selectors didn't select me. And Mum was like, the selectors don't have to select you. When you're 12, you have this conversation. Over the years, I reflected on that conversation. It was an absolute revelation. Now I can put that into words. What that taught me was, if it is to be, it's up to me. Not up to the selectors to select me. It's up to me to get myself selected. I took that all the way through, even when I was the captain of the Diamonds. I'd turn up to selection weekends, a little bit different from the Hawkesbury under 11s. Back in those days, it was an afternoon of trials. Selection weekend for the Australian team is a 5-day horror chamber. You basically get in on day 1 and you go as hard as you can, and you get to day 5 and you think I might die, but you get to the end. So, but I always thought going into those selections with the Diamonds that the little 12-year-old girl inside me was always like, oh, you've got to turn up, you've got to do your best, and you've got to select yourself. And that was a crucial learning for me because I've taken it into my business career, and I deal with a lot of clients now. We work on a lot of things, but one of the things I ask them is, are you taking responsibility for your performance? And I learnt this at under 12s. If it is to be, it's up to me. You've got to take responsibility for your performance. The moment you blame anyone, you lose control of the outcome. And I played for plenty of coaches who over the years allowed themselves to do that. We had a coach who, every time we lost, would either blame the umpires or would blame the fact that we had good players out injured. You lose control of it. You blame the umpires, they're not going to make you win. It's not their job to let you win. It's their job to control the game. You blame injuries. Can't do much about that other than to try and figure out a way to stop your players getting injured. But once they get injured, you've got to deal with what you've got. So if you're in a business environment and you think, oh, my business should be better, but oh, this happened or that happened, or I blame this person or I blame that person, you've got no control. You've got no control over your destiny. You accept personal responsibility for your own outcomes. You are in control of your own destiny. So that was a real key learning for me, and it came out of a conversation with someone who I consider to be a great woman, and that's my mum. I'm not going to take you through my glorious career in the western suburbs of Sydney. So a few years later, several years later, I got the opportunity. I made the Hawkesbury under-13s rep team, don't worry. The lady with the parachute thighs came out and read my name out. It was fantastic. So several years later, I was invited to apply for a scholarship at the AIS, the Australian Institute of Sport. Now, for a young netballer, it was the pinnacle. What could be better than going off to the AIS, having great coaches, having great support staff, all your fitness stuff is there, there's physios, there's chiropractors, there's massage, there's psychologists, there's physiologists, everything you could possibly need to get better. So I was accepted for a scholarship, and I went down with the expectation that this was going to be another great turning point for me, and I was right. So we had this brilliant coach, her name was Gay Teed. She had played for Australia, she had captained Australia, she had coached Australia. What she didn't know about netball wasn't worth knowing. And I had a crucial conversation with her that really did change the way I thought and probably change the direction to a degree of my career. Actually, I had a couple of good conversations with her. I'll tell you the first conversation I had with her. I'd never met her, but I'd heard of her. And we turned up to the AES, and there's 18 giggly girls who are all aged 18. You can imagine what it's like. All moving in together and all that stuff. And the way it used to be set up was as a common room, and your bedrooms, there was 9 bedrooms on one side, 9 bedrooms on the other side, and you had your own bedroom, but you shared bathrooms, you had this common room. We all walked in, and some of us knew each other and some of us didn't. You can imagine what it was like, for about 5 hours. And there was a sign in the common room on the whiteboard, AIS Netball Girls meeting at the courts at 3:30. So we all went down there, and this was my first encounter with my coach. We all walked in and we sat down. Oh, what's Gay going to teach us? Oh, meaning of life according to netball. And she goes, ladies, welcome to the AIS. It's a smorgasbord of men down here, so don't make pigs of yourselves. Now, that wasn't the conversation that changed my career, but it did teach me a lot about a la carte dining. So, Gay had lots of different philosophies. Some people disliked her. I loved her because she was hard and she was honest and she was fair, and you can't ask for anything more in a coach. So through that period, I went to my first ever international match. I went to watch Australia play New Zealand in the final of the '91 World Cup. So some of you guys would remember that. It was when netball really came of age. The final was at the Entertainment Centre. It was the first time that the Netball World Cup was played indoors, the first time there was finals. Suddenly my little sport, which really had no prominence, was on the front page of the paper. The final had 10,000 screaming fans at the Entertainment Centre. Sadly, Customs had let through a lot of Kiwis, so it was about half and half. They will travel, those Kiwis. Any Kiwis in the room? Yeah, there always is, out and proud. You might not have your hand up so high at the end of this, but anyway, we'll see how we go. So the 91 World Cup was happening. It was fantastic. We were in there. The atmosphere was amazing. Bob Hawke was there, the Prime Minister, with Hazel. That's how long ago it was. And he was cheering, and he got to present the cup and everything. It was unbelievable. Australia wins by 1 goal in the dying minutes. So I'm in the coach on the way home, and I'm chatting away to Gay because she wanted to have a meeting with all of us. So I'm chatting away to her, and she said, "What do you think?" I said, "Oh, it's great. Best thing I've ever seen." She said, "Oh, well, what do you think about your chances of playing for Australia one day?" I'm like, "Oh, no, those girls are so good. I don't know that I'd ever be that good." And she said this one thing to me, and it sticks in my mind because it changed the way I thought about my career. She said, "Well, someone has to play goalkeeper for Australia. Might as well be you." I was like, "Yeah. Might as well be me. Someone's got to do it. Someone's got to have a successful business. Might as well be you. Someone's got to have great clients, might as well be you. And someone's going to do it. Why can't it be you? And that really changed the way I thought, because when you have ambition and when you have dreams and goals, a lot of the external feedback that you get from people is, oh, you couldn't do that. Oh, you can't do that, that's a bit silly. And the more you think about it, the more you realise that the people who are saying that, that's their problem. When you start to think about someone's got to do this, might as well be me, it really does start to change the way you think about how you're going to go about your business. So for me, it made me think about how was I going to go about my business. I was 18 years old. Someone had to play for Australia, it might as well be me. Now, I reckon Gay said that to all 4 players in our squad who played my position. So it wasn't like she picked me out and anointed me. There you go. I reckon she said it to all of us. So I knew that she'd probably had the same conversation with everyone. It's like in business, most people have access to the same information or the same sort of bits and pieces. But for me, information was king. So I thought, right, I want to be as good, if not better than the women who are in the Australian netball team now. They're the best, they're the benchmark. I need their data, I need information on them. So I may or may not have bribed the physiologist at the RAS to give me their fitness test results. So I thought, that's something that I can replicate, that's something that I can look for. So for me, I knew it was a matter of getting their fitness test results, and I had to be fit, strong and fast. When I got their results, I realised I had to be at least as fit, as strong and as fast. So I wrote my goal down. I want to play netball for Australia. Someone had to do it, might as well be me. I gave myself a timeline, 4 years, that was the next World Cup. Wanted to be there for the next World Cup. I got the data and that helped me develop my strategy. My strategy was not very sophisticated. Head down, bum up, work hard. So I learnt at that age that anyone can write a goal down. Anyone can give themselves a time frame. You can all do it now. Write a goal down, give yourself a time frame. If you don't do the hard work, if you don't know what you're working towards, exactly how you're going to get there, you're not going to get there. So for me, it was about that, just hard work. I just spent the summer getting strong and getting fit and getting fast. And that meant not going out. That meant making the sacrifices. That meant making sure that I ate well. That meant making sure that I stretched down and did my recovery and took my fluids on board. And all that boring stuff that ruins your life when you're an athlete, but you know you've got to do it because there's a point at the end. So 2 years later, we went to selections. The girl who played my position in the Aussie team had got injured. She was the one who took the winning intercept back in '91. She was one of my idols. She injured her back, and a heap of us turned up to selection. There was me and a couple of other girls who were sort of my age who could have got selected in that team. And I got selected. So I was picked to replace Rosalie. And someone said to me a few days later, gee, that was lucky that she got injured. Absolutely not. There's going to be situations in everyone's career where opportunities open up. You'll take those opportunities if you're ready. And I was ready. And I was readier than the other girls who were my opponents in that regard. So all the way along, I'd been a little goalkeeper, doing my absolute best to make sure that I was trying to get into the Australian netball team. I was a sole trader, essentially. I was just working by myself within a team. You know, there are other people around me, but I had my goals and my dreams and my aspirations. So 2 years later, I got to get into the Australian netball team. Sorry, just had to get back to my notes. Got in the Australian netball team. Realisation of a goal. Problem is, once you start to be successful, you want to be a bit more successful. Got in the Aussie team, realised I want to stay there. You don't just want to get in there and play at one test. You want to get in there and play 100 tests. That's the problem with being successful. Makes you want more success. It's a little bit addictive. Wasn't sure how I was going to go in terms of playing more tests. First tour I went on, I roomed with the great Vicky Wilson. She was the goddess of netball. I got put in a room with her. I had to sleep in a twin bed next to her. Not very glamorous when you're touring with the Australian netball team. Vicky was the goddess. I worshipped her. I was in the bed next to her. I was so scared of farting at the altar. It was awful. I was so worried that I was going to do something that smelled that she didn't like or something, or say something wrong. And I overheard her during the course of the tournament that we were at. She was like, oh, Liz snores. I was like, oh, I snore? Could do something about that. So every night I'd lie there pretending I was asleep, breathing sweetly until I knew Vicky was asleep, and then I'd sort of drift off and wake myself up. I hardly got any sleep. So much so that when I played my first test match, I was so exhausted. I was playing against, I think, Brendan's little sister. She was 5'2". She was the Welsh goal shooter. Every time I got an intercept, I threw it back to her. Like, that's a hard thing to do when you're my height, when you're 6 foot. Gave it back to the Welsh goal shooter. The coach pulled me off at quarter time. She goes, right, we're wearing yellow, not red. So I soon learned that I had to just forget about snoring and worrying Vicky and make sure that I actually started to concentrate on my own performance. So I wanted to stay in the Australian team. I managed to do that, but I wanted more. I wanted to be the captain. So my leadership journey began when I was named captain of my club team. Suddenly I was no longer a sole trader, beavering away at my own business, trying to just do the best for me. But I was in charge of a team of 11 girls, all trying to do their own thing, and you're trying to make sure you come together and you act as a team. Now, anyone who runs a business with more than one person knows that the moment you take on leadership and the moment you take on responsibility is the moment you move away a little bit from doing what you're really good at, because suddenly you become a relationships counsellor, a used car salesman, you sometimes act as a real estate agent. There's all these different roles that you had to undertake. And I initially I found that very hard, and through my leadership career I found it hard because it takes you away from concentrating on yourself and your own performance and what you do best. So I started off my leadership career as a bit of a dictator. It was my way or the highway, which won't shock any of you, having listened to me now for about 20 minutes. I like things to be done how I like things to be done. That's not great when you're trying to run a team full of athletes, of amateur athletes, essentially. So when I was made captain, we weren't professional. Things have changed now, thanks to ANZ. Woo-hoo, well done. But back when I was playing, you know, in my last year of playing, I earned $8,000 per annum. That's not like a monthly thing, that's per annum. I had a mortgage in Sydney. I had to marry well to be able to afford that mortgage because I wasn't going to do it with my netball income. So for me, managing these women who we wanted to be like professionals, but essentially we were amateur, they had lots of other competing interests in their life. It was a really tough thing. I was successful initially. We won the club's first ever premiership within 2 years of me taking over from as captain. It was great, it was awesome, but I was exhausted because I had been such a micromanager. I wanted to know what everyone was doing and why you weren't doing it and why can't you turn up to training and perform. I don't care what's happening with your job or your boyfriend or your family. You can't be like that. You've got to be better. And I've talked already about a couple of really key conversations that I've had with people that affected my career. And one of the great things about Australian sport is that there's lots of captains of different teams who you run into at different functions. And I had a conversation with a couple of them. And what they really stressed to me was being a good leader was not about being the bossiest. Anyone can be bossy. Being a good leader is about creating a culture and creating a culture where everyone wants to be there, they understand their role, and they desperately want to do their role. And that's hard. That's really hard as a leader, especially when you're trying to still run the business and still do all the things around you. And to me, the key in that is communication. So I reinvented myself as a leader. The key things that I did was allocate responsibility. I think sometimes when you're a leader, you think you've got to have all the answers. You think you've got to be able to do everything in your business and be able to do it and, you know, show everyone else how to do it. Allocate responsibility. It was such a light bulb moment for me. I had a girl in my team who was a personal trainer. I gave her responsibility for the warm-up. Not hard. Made no difference to my leadership in terms of whether I was good or not. It just freed up my headspace. So I allocated responsibility. I worked with my teammates to set really clear goals and the behaviours that go with them. And we set really clear accountability measures so that the team could call each other to account. So these were all the things that I worked on, and a couple of years later I did achieve my ultimate dream. I was named captain of the Australian netball team, the Diamonds. Now, initially I thought it was the pinnacle of my career. It doesn't get any better than this, but something that you learn, as I've just spoken about, every time you're successful, you want more. Suddenly I was captain of the Diamonds. I wanted to win captain the team to a Commonwealth Games gold medal. I wanted to captain the team to the World Championships. So when I was named captain, our former captain had just retired. We'd just lost the World Cup to New Zealand and our coach had retired. So we're starting off a bit of a low base. Things weren't great. Things didn't get a whole lot better. In my very first tour, I captained Australia to our first ever 3-0 whitewash by New Zealand, not of New Zealand sadly, in 27 years. That was in my first year. In my second year, I captained us to our record, Australia's biggest ever test loss. Yep, to the dirty Kiwis. So the Kiwis in the room are going, woohoo! Oh yeah, yeah. You're saying that's pretty special. So things were pretty bad. they got worse. In that record loss, we were playing in Auckland. I was playing against the great Irene van Dijk. She ran out to the left, as I did so often in my career. I followed her and missed the intercept. I turned in the midair. I landed on just outside the court on a little piece of advertising hoarding. It gave way, and my knee went like that. Netballer's worst nightmare. Anterior cruciate ligament gone. And how they know it's gone is because they make you sit down and they pull the bottom of your leg out. It's called the draw test. They draw your leg out. Some of you have probably had this. If your leg stops, the ligament's still there. If the bottom of your leg keeps going, the ligament's not there anymore. The bottom of my leg just kept going. I didn't want to believe it. This was at the end of 2005. The big thing for us was 2006, the Melbourne Commonwealth Games. I wanted to be part of that. We don't get to play in the Olympics because the Olympics are stupid. They don't want netball. So I think they're stupid. Anyway, we don't get to play in the Olympics. We didn't get to play in Sydney. Melbourne was our gig. We desperately all wanted to play in Melbourne. And I had started to dream as we got closer about the really important things about the Commonwealth Games, like how I'm going to do my hair for the opening ceremony and wave as we went around the track. You know, the really important things of the Commonwealth Games. So this was November 2005, Commonwealth Games were in March 2006. Suddenly I was going nowhere. Suddenly all my dreams, gone. All my goals, gone. Everything that I planned for, gone. Everything I worked for, gone. Like that. Happens in sport, it can happen in business. We've all seen it happen. So there's plenty of sayings around, but one that I like is, doesn't matter what you do when you get down, what matters is what you do in terms of getting back up. So for me, it was about getting back up. But first things first, had to have the scan the next morning. And my best mate, Kath Cox, was in the team. She kindly volunteered to miss ice baths that morning to come with me. I know, she's a trooper. And she should never play poker because I had my scan and I walked out of the room and opened the door and she was standing at the door. I was bawling her eyes out. I'm like, well, I guess I've done my knee then. Yes! So I gave her a hug, patted her on the back, and I'm like, it's my goddamn knee. You should be hugging me. So she went and found a wine bar. It was 10 a.m. in the morning, and I mixed red wine and painkillers. Got me through the next few days. Went to get on the flight to get home. This is one way to get a business class upgrade. I walked onto the flight with my scans. Before I even did that, I had another little moment which was awful. I was walking into Auckland Airport, and you have to go up a set of escalators to sort of get up towards where you're going to go through. And as I was going up the escalators, because the team was going on to Jamaica for the rest of the tour, and that hurt too, missing a tour of the Caribbean, let me tell you. Not for netball reasons though. Anyway, so I was going up the escalator, and the girl who they brought in, the young superstar they brought in to replace me, was going down on her way to join my team. And I was like, oh, Beck, hi, how are you? Good to see you. Have a really great tour. And as she went past me, I went... Anyway, so after acting like a mature 32-year-old, which I was at the time, I went to get in the flight, and I was telling you about how to get an upgrade. So how to get an upgrade, you have scans under your arms, you walk on with ice on your knee, and you bawl your eyes out. I was like, go the, what do you call it? I don't want to say trolley dolly because that's wrong. Steward, yeah? Cabin staff, gave the cabin man my, you think I would never fly. I only fly 4 times a week, whatever you call them. I gave him a boarding pass, and he looked at me and he goes, oh, I'm sorry, you better sit up the front. I thought he was being really kind, but I think he thought that I might scare the other passengers. So I got my flight home. And the hardest thing that I've ever done was miss the Commonwealth Games. Yeah, I could blame external factors, I could blame injury and all that sort of stuff, but I didn't want to sit around and blame things. Could have been the end of my career. People rang up and said, you know, you can retire. You've won World Cups, you've won Commonwealth Games gold medals, you've captained Australia, you've won national premierships. You can retire, it doesn't matter. But it mattered to me. I wanted to retire when I wanted to retire. I wanted to retire on my own terms. And I couldn't blame an injury and let that dictate what was going to happen to me. It was difficult. I went to see my surgeon, got that underway, and I went to see the physio. And I thought, right, my goal is to play netball again. That's my goal. My time frame, I wanted to do it in 6 months before the start of the next netball season. I needed a plan. I needed a strategy. And I was prepared to do the hard work. So I went to my physio and I got him to write down every single thing that I needed to do for every single day for 6 months. Yep, he hated me, but I had my strategy. It was right there. I could go through and tick it all off as I went. The other thing that I went and worked for Channel 7 through the games. They weren't the rights holders, but the Today Show, Sunrise did their show out of the Commonwealth Games in Melbourne, so I went and worked for them. I got barred from the Commonwealth Games Village by Channel 9. They didn't want me in there. Television networks, that's a whole nother presentation, let me start you on that. But it was really hard for me. I turned up to the first game and saw my team doing what they did without me. Cheryl McMahon was captaining the team, she was doing a do. They didn't need me. That's the worst thing about being a leader, when you realise your team doesn't need you, they'll still function without you. My ego tells me they didn't function as well, but they still functioned okay without me. Well, mind you, they only won silver, so that's not my fault. It was a good thing for me to go down though and face that harsh reality, because it really fired my passion. And in hindsight, that injury for me was one of the best things that happened to me in my career, because it made me want to play netball again. And I didn't realise, but in the time that I had been captain, there was problems above. Our coach and the CEO of Netball Australia didn't get along, and I was caught in the middle of that. I was trying to manage players in the team, some of whom were having issues. You're trying to manage down, you're trying to manage up. And at the end of the day, it was taking me away from my passion. And I had started to think of netball as a little bit of a chore. So having the 6 months away allowed me to rekindle my passion. I wanted to play netball again. I wanted to be there. I wanted to train really hard, and I wanted to be really fit and really fast and really strong. So I got back into the team in 2006 in time for the club season. Yes, I missed the Commonwealth Games, but I had other things now. I'd reset my goals. I wanted to play netball again. I did that. I wanted to win the national championship. We did that. I was named MVP for the season, and I wanted to play for Australia again, and I did that, and I was named captain. Yay, goals achieved. Not really. Next year was the 2007 World Cup. We were playing in New Zealand. The World Cup was in New Zealand. Highly likely we'd meet New Zealand in the final. Probably giving the end of my story away. Meet New Zealand in the final. To beat New Zealand in New Zealand, you've got to be a 10-goal better team to win by 1. I knew we had to be the best prepared Australian team ever. And I knew that to do that, we had to want to do that from within. And often in teams, they bring in external consultants to do things. And we always had psychologists come in to do our strategy at the start of the year. And they'd always do it before dinner. And everyone knows you don't get between a netballer and food. Everyone knows that, except for our coaches. So the psychologist would turn up and we'd do the strategy, and you just tell him what he wanted to hear, because you knew what he wanted to hear. You'd read his book, knew what he wanted to hear, just so you could go to dinner. And that was your strategy for the year, done because you were hungry. So I said to the coach, don't want to do that. I want to run the session myself with Cheryl, who was the vice captain, and I want it to come from the team. And I talked before about communication. As a leader, you've got to be able to communicate. Communication is not about talking to your team. It's about listening to them as well. So for me, it was about encouraging the girls who don't say much to speak up. And what I wanted to do was to come up first with a sentence. What is the Australian netball team? What does it look like? What does it do? So we came up with the Australian netball team is proud, united and relentless. Great sentence. Silver Ferns could have come up with the same thing. The New Zealand netball team is proud, united and relentless. Woohoo, you can have a sentence party all you like. Have you guys, you would have all been into places, or maybe in your own offices, where there's like words like integrity up on the walls, passion, teamwork. Yeah, everyone's got them. It's not special. Right? You can go and get on a poster and stick it on your wall. It means nothing. So we set out a series of behaviours. For proud, we decided to show the world that we were proud, to show our opposition that we were proud to play for Australia. To do that, we did things like made sure we all wore the same uniform. Really simple. It's not rocket surgery. So I allocated one of the girls who liked fashion, not my gig, as you can tell, very plain. Her job was to tell us what we had to wear each day for training, and she did that. We were proud. We were proud to be part of the Australian netball team. We had to behave like it, not like those bloody cricketers. We were proud. We were united. One of the things we resolved to do was to stand on the court for the national anthem and put our arms around each other. The Australian netball team had never done that during the anthem. I don't know why. No one had thought to do it. Now the Diamonds do that. They're playing New Zealand tomorrow night in Sydney. You can watch it on Fox 2 or SBS. You can listen to me talk more if you haven't heard enough of me today, because I'll be commentating. Watch the national anthem. They stand there with their arms around each other. Their current slogan is Sisters in Arms. It means so much to show that you are united. We resolved that if someone got knocked over by one of the dirty Kiwis or those rough Jamaicans, we'd go to our teammate and pick her up, show the world that we were united. And for Relentless, we decided that we were going to do everything within our power to win this World Cup. That meant going home and doing your own home training. So for the Australian netball team is a lot like a heap of sole traders who come together once every day together. Because you go home, you've got to do all your training, you've got to do all your weights, you've got to watch your diet, and there's no one looking over your shoulder saying, don't do this, don't do that, make sure you do this, get out and do that. You've got to do it yourself. You've got to be driven to do it yourself. So that was the relentless part. We also decided as part of that to give up alcohol. That hurt a lot. Because I've given up my love of fire and changed that for a love of red wine. One of the girls in our team reckoned she didn't drink, so she gave up chocolate. Like that counted. So we got to New Zealand in pretty good nick. I was 34, so I was considered a little bit old. We went to our first press conference. New Zealand is awesome from the point of view that netball is massive. You go to a press conference and the press turn up. Amazing. We had press conference in Australia and our parents would turn up and bring a plate. So we go to our press conference, the press is there, they're asking questions. We go up the next morning, we're like, woo, what do the papers say? Headline, Norma's geriatrics. Norma was the coach. Because I was 34 and the captain, we were geriatrics, we were old. So we had to manage our bodies. Yes, that was a risk. But the Kiwi press gave us heaps. Every time we turned on the bloody television, oh, the Solver ferns. Aren't they talented? Aren't they special? Do you guys want to translate for me so everyone knows what I'm saying? We're like, $50, buy a vowel, speak properly. But they gave us heaps. So we sort of felt the whole time like around. And our team management decided that, like, you're in a room, there's 3 girls to a room, again, not very glamorous in netball. You're under siege. Like, every time you go to the shops, there's a shopkeeper telling you how horrible you are and how their girl's going to beat you. So our team managers said, right, girls, through the whole tournament, each room has to come up with a skit. Let me tell you what I think of skits. Replace the K with an H. I don't like them. Anyway, so no surprise, my room got together and we're like, oh, we'll just do something to take the mickey out of the Kiwis' accents, which we did. Everyone did something except for one room. Now, they're a room of goal shooters. Goal shooters aren't bright. Anyone play goal shooter or goal attack? Put your hand up. Does your wife play goal shooter or goal attack? No one wants to admit to it now, do they? I wouldn't either, because you're all princesses. Anyone play centre? Wing attack? Come on. Does your wife play centre or wing attack? Yep, they're bossy. I see blokes going, yeah, that's my wife. Any defenders in the room? Yeah, hands up. We're the brains of the outfit. Smart, pretty. I was a goalkeeper. I was a defender. So anyway, this group of girls, they hadn't done anything. We get to the day before the final. We're like, you girls have to do something because you're doing a nudie run if you don't. We have training. They disappear. We're like, where are the girls? Probably off doing their lip gloss or their hair or whatever it is goal shooters do. They came back as we were doing our warm down, and one of them, they were all giggling, laughing, and one of them had a box behind her back, or had something behind her back. Well, okay, tell us, what's in the box? So she brought out the box, big long black box. I knew exactly what it was. They'd gone to the tournament office, which was unattended, and they'd stolen the World Cup. I know. I was thinking, oh my God, the FBI are going to just rain down hell on us or something. So they'd stolen the World Cup. But being goal shooters, when we said open the box, they'd forgotten to steal the key. Remember what I said? Not very smart. So we're all laughing and taking the mickey, ha ha ha, that's not very good. And then one of the kids in our team who, when she first came to the team, hadn't said very much, but through this process that we'd been through of communication, it's not about just speaking to your team, it's about listening to your team. She piped up, she said, we're the key. I'm like, what? She goes, we're the key, our team's the key. We can get out tomorrow and win, we are the key, we can open the box. And it was a great moment in our team because we all looked at each other and were like, yeah, this is awesome, we're the key. For me, it was such validation as a leader because this kid had said it. Something that was potentially really daggy, she'd said. But it was great. So we get out the next day and we play this final. Australia-New Zealand, the most intense game of netball I've ever played. Unbelievable, ding-dong battle. In the first half, we had the ascendancy. Third quarter, not so much. New Zealand were coming back. It was unbelievable. Three-quarter time, my family, I come from a very large, very Catholic, they often go together, family in Western Sydney. They'd all got together to watch the game. And they got one of our family friends, Sister Anne, she was with them. Three-quarter time, one of my cousins says, I don't know, like we've screamed at the television, they're not listening, they can't hear us, not doing what we say, we should pray. So everyone looks at Sister Anne, praying, that's her core competency. Without missing a beat, she goes, "The Father, Son, Holy Spirit, amen. Hail Mary, full of grace. Please put the ball in the right place." Now, 15 minutes later, we were the champions of the world. That tells me that God loves her netball because she was watching, and it also tells me that she's Australian. Sorry, boys. We won. It was exciting. Something that I haven't told you, and I didn't tell my team until afterwards, was that was my last ever game of netball. I had decided some months ago that I was going to retire at the end of that. And I made the decision, no matter what happened, I'd retire, and I told my immediate family, and I told my manager. My manager's like, "Great, we can sell the store, new idea will have it. They're a sponsor of Australian Netball, they'll pay for it, we can go to 60 minutes, I'll take it as well, blah, blah, blah." And I'm like, no. As a leader, I'd learnt my lesson. Leadership wasn't about the bossiest. It was about creating a culture that you all want to succeed in and everyone wants to do their job. As a leader, it was my job to stick by the sentence that we had made. The Australian netball team is proud, united and relentless. Remember that sentence. We'd sacrificed, we'd given up so much, we'd planned, we had strategies. When you're a leader, often the decisions that you have to make are only the hard ones. And this was really clarified for me with an interview I read with Barack Obama, and he said, as a president, you think that all the decisions are hard because only the hard decisions come to you. If you're a leader in a business, anything that's easy, that decision gets made down the line before it gets to you. The hard stuff is what comes to you. You start to think that every decision that the whole world makes is hard. I used to be a solicitor and I worked in litigation, and we had to remember that all over the world there are contracts that happen each day that don't get litigated. You have to remind yourself that not every contract is a litigation. You've got to remind yourself as a leader that not every decision is hard. So I get this hard decision. What do? I can make a lot of money. Remember, I was earning $8,000 a year out of selling the story, or do I stick with my team? And when you are faced with a hard decision, the thing that really helps you, if you have your strategy beforehand. Our strategy was the Australian netball team is proud, united and relentless. I go out and announce my retirement. Everything in the lead up at the press conferences that, in New Zealand the press come to becomes about me. Don't get me wrong. I love everything being about me. I've got a fairly healthy ego. I love that you're all listening to me now. This is like the best 40 minutes of my day. I could go on, but I won't, because I know when it gets to the bar and it's a Friday afternoon. So for me, when it came to making that decision, it was easy. If I announced my retirement, that's neither united, it's not part of being relentless. It takes my mind off our focus, what I'm trying to do. So I didn't announce my retirement. And for me, that was one of the proudest moments of my leadership, because I had listened to my teammates and I had acted on what they wanted. I hadn't told them what to do, I'd listened to them. As I said, I told my family. My husband was at the game with my sister. They were sitting next to each other. She looked at him at the end of the game, bit of a tear. She's like, "Oh, Matthew, isn't that lovely? You're crying, you're so happy for your wife." He goes, "No." Had she lost, it would have been a bloody long life. So, it's all very well to have your retirement story, but man, it's hard on your family. So sometimes leadership is hard on everyone else that you have to deal with. So I guess for me, throughout my career, there's been lots of conversations that I've had with people that have really helped guide me. And you heard from Colin today, he was talking about conversations, about getting to the fact, to the essence of the matter. Listen to the people who you talk to, listen to people who you respect. I had great coaches who really guided me all the way through my career. One of the greatest coaches I had, who I haven't mentioned, Julie Fitzgerald. Had her for years as a club coach. She never played for Australia, she never played for New South Wales, she didn't play rep for Ku-ring-gai, where she was from. But she was a great coach because she was a great people manager. She cared about her charges. She cared about us as people, not players. That made her a great coach. She's gone to New Zealand and been incredibly successful there because she cares about her players. She gets them to do the little things well. So I've had really great coaches. Julie taught me to respect my opposition. That's a really key thing to teach a young player. Don't go out there thinking you're cocky and you're really good, because that will bite you. Respect your opposition. Gay Teed taught me, someone has to play for Australia, it might as well be you. Mum taught me, don't expect anyone else to do it for you. You'll be able to think of a heap of different conversations that you've had with people all through your career as you're doing business, and there will be key moments. I guess for me, one of the big key moments after the conversation that I had with my mum was accept responsibility for your own performance. Accept responsibility for how your business is running. Don't blame external factors. Don't blame other people. Don't blame things that you can't control. Yeah, things like the GFC are really bad. You can't control it. What can you control? What can you control in your business? What have you learnt today that you can go back and put into your business? Now, I challenge myself. I'm sweating like a trooper to stand out here without the little safety net of my lectern, and I want you guys to do the same. What's something that you've heard today or learned today that takes you out of your safety zone that you can go back and put back into your business? Who do you need to help you to do that? What's your time frame? What are the behaviours? What's your strategy? Think about it. Too often we don't get to do that in our business. That's the one thing that I learned from being injured. I had 6 months to think about things. Take yourself out of your business. Maybe not for 6 months, it might not be there when you get back, but take yourself out of it. Think about it. Think about what you can do differently. Think about your strategy. Think about the people. And also just think about yourself. That's a really key thing. Often when you're a leader, you forget to do that. So I hope today that you'll pick up something really valuable. You'll be able to put it into your business and you'll be able to change your business. You might sit there and think, my business is pretty good. That's great. Are you good? You're taking care of yourself. There's lots of things to think about as a leader, but it starts with you, and it starts also with listening to the people around you, whether they're people you want advice from or the people you're employing. So I thank you for your time, and I think we've got some time for questions. Is that what you want to do? And I met someone before who told me he asked questions, so no pressure. Does anyone want to ask any questions? Yeah, at the back. Oh no, it's a New Zealander. What was that? Hang on, I think there's a microphone coming. I can't understand you. Can someone translate?
I've been asked that Lucas asked a question, does that fence keeping the Kiwis out?
Okay, that's a bit of an in-joke. So, let me explain. On the weekend, like my best mate, Coxie, just retired from the Australian netball teams, third most capped player in the history of netball. She's going out with a Kiwi, who's a mortgage broker. I know. So when he came up to our place on the weekend with Catherine, we made him fix the fence. And the Kiwis will get it. All he wanted to do was see a snake. He's about 6'4" and built like a brick shit house, and he saw a snake and he went to water. My daughter, my 3-year-old daughter, is braver than him when it comes to seeing a snake. But yes, it is to keep the Kiwis out. Yep.
What was the support like when you were injured from everyone around you?
It was really quite interesting. What was the support like when I was injured? I got great support from some people. As I sort of alluded to, I didn't get great support from the association. So Netball Australia, the CEO was a bit at loggerheads with our coach. That was really taking them away from each other. From what they were supposed to be doing. And like, I got no support from my coach. So much so that I went to the Commonwealth Games to watch, and I had said to her, I want to come and help. I want to come and help the young defenders. I want us to win the gold medal. I still consider myself to be part of the team. She was so taken up with her own problems that she just wiped me completely, and that was really difficult. So I sort of sought refuge with other people. I found other people within the sport who I really respected, one of those being my club coach, Julie Fitzgerald. And I buried myself in my training. So I got great support from our team physio. He went and did a heap of research to make sure that I came back in as best shape as I could. So from different levels, the support was different. One of the things I didn't do well, I probably should have talked about this. So I got injured and I was the captain, but there was no succession plan. And if you're in any business, you've got to think about this. I was captain, and then they put Sherelle McMahon in as captain for the Commonwealth Games. Then I got back into the team. She was the captain, but I had been the captain, and no one really addressed what to do. And so they made us co-captains. I think co-captaincy is the stupidest thing you could ever do, because every group needs a leader, right? So, and our personalities didn't work very well for co-captaincy. We're far more suited, I think, to me being the captain and her being the vice captain. And that is the decision that was eventually made. But it wasn't addressed. Our coach just made the decision and called us into a meeting separately and told us. And then Sherelle walked out of the meeting and bawled her eyes out, quite rightly, because she'd suddenly gone from captain to co-captain to vice captain with no real process. So now they've changed things up. Now they've got processes and now they've got people to support. But it was a really tough time. I received, because the sport hadn't really sort of got its head around it, and a lot of people who'd been in my position just faded off into the distance, and I wasn't prepared to do that. It made them make changes. And that's the same in any organisation. Organisations aren't particularly proactive. They make changes after an event, and the clients I work with, we talk about, well, what can you do to make changes now? What can you envisage happening? And that really comes from me having that experience, that whole leadership sort of experience. It was really difficult. It's okay. Sherelle and I are great mates now. Our children have play dates. I shouldn't say children, I should say snot machines. They're toddlers.
Liz, over here.
Where are you?
Rob.
Hang on. Oh, there. Oh, God, you freaked me out, man. I knew the microphone was there.
Surprise. After you retired, did you continue on with your fitness regime or,
Yeah, I actually planned for my retirement because I knew that I was going to be out. I planned for my retirement. That's a good question. I spoke to someone who had been involved with Ian Thorpe's first retirement. And one of the things that he did really well then was he trained himself down, and I thought that was a great idea. So a lot of people achieve a goal, they retire, and then they just pull the ripcord. And that leads to all sorts of health issues, physical and mental health issues. So I decided to train myself down. There's a lot of evidence around that being physically fit and being active is really good for you mentally. And I knew that if I wasn't going to have the safety net of my sport and my teammates around me, I had to keep fit. So I trained myself down for about 8 months, which was really beneficial to me. And, it also sort of gave me a bit of a routine, because that's another thing that athletes struggle with when they lose their routine. Yes, that was good. Oh no, another Kiwi. Sorry, what was that?
Do you think that Ewan McKenzie is the best person to lead the Wallabies into the next World Cup?
Oh, I don't know. I know someone who's had a lot to do with Kurtley Beales, and I know that he's incredibly disappointed with what's happening at the moment. I don't know enough about, I'm not close enough to them, I guess, but what I would say is that, like, the All Blacks are like New Zealand were for us, like the Silver Ferns in 2007. They are phenomenal. Richie McCaw is the greatest player and cheat of all time. He's outstanding. I love watching him play because he pushes the rules, and that used to be my job. Push the rules, get a niggle in, annoy your opposition. Don't let the umpire see you. Look like butter wouldn't melt in your mouth when they look at you. Oh, I didn't do it. I don't know why she's bleeding. And Richie's the same. So to beat the All Blacks, not in New Zealand, it's in England, I think, the next World Cup, isn't it? The Wallabies have to be the absolute best that they can be. And this whole situation now with Ewan McKenzie and Kurtley Beale is a huge distraction. One of the things that we used to think about when we were trying to win something big was, and you do take inspiration from other athletes. And I remember someone years and years ago, remember when Grant Hackett was trying to break the Kieran Perkins 1500 metres world record? Someone interviewed Kieran Perkins and said, is it the first 500 or is it last 500? Is it his turns? Is it his start? How does he break the world record? And Kieran Perkins said something that has stuck with me, and I reckon this applies to the Wallabies, and I reckon this is why they're going to struggle. To break the world record, to win a World Cup, to win a gold medal, it's not your start, it's not your finish, it's not your turns. Every stroke has to be perfect. Want to do something extraordinary, every stroke has to be perfect. And I don't reckon the Wallabies are making every stroke perfect at the moment. So I think you guys are going to be pretty happy next year at the World Cup, but at the Netball World Cup, you're going down. And that'll start tomorrow night. There was a gentleman who told me he asked lots of questions. I haven't heard from him. Where are you? Oh, there you are. My 3-year-old, yes.
Would you encourage her into netball, number one? And number two, would she be goal attack, goal defence or centre?
I wouldn't cope with my progeny being a goal shooter or a goal attack. No, I don't mind what she does, to be honest. As long as she's fit and active, I don't care. I think the greatest challenge that we've got is to keep our kids healthy, active and fit. We live on a farm, so I'm forever saying to her, get outside. That tends to work. And I really don't mind what she wants to do. Oh, to a degree. I don't want her to be a swimmer because I don't want to get up at 4 a.m. to take her to training. But anything else she wants to do, I don't mind. She doesn't have my last name. She's got my husband's last name, which I think will help, because I just don't want her to be, that's Liz Ellis's kid. That might be good, it might be bad. She can make her own way. She can be Evelyn Stocks, no relation to me, except for the people who know. My parents, I laugh about my mum and the things she said to me. The best thing that they did to me was and if you've got kids who are good at something, the best advice I can give you is let them go. My parents never pushed. Every time I got selected in something, they were like, wow, we didn't think you were that good. Like, they were always really surprised. They didn't hover, they didn't annoy the coach, they just let me go and find my own way. And I achieved because I had to get up and have my own drive and go and do it. And that's the best thing, that's the greatest gift you can give your kids. So I don't care what my little girl does. I'd like it if she stopped catching colds at daycare, but past that, I don't mind what she does. But my philosophy is going to be a bit of benign neglect. She can choose what she wants to do, but she's got to do the driving and the passion herself.
Liz, everyone knows how successful netball is as a participation sport. Why is it you think that they just haven't hit the corporate market as a mainstream spectator sport? Women's tennis is very lucrative, but there's a lot more people that play netball in Australia than women's tennis.
There's two things to think about. That's a good question. There's two things to think about. There's sponsorship and corporate support. Netball gets that really well. The sponsorship of the ANZ is one of the largest sponsorships in the world of a women's sporting league. Like, it is phenomenal, the money that they pour in. Netball Australia just announced Real Insurance, Chemist Warehouse, STA Travel. There's a heap of, there's lots of companies that want to be involved with netball because netball is the one sport in Australia where the participants hold Australia's purse strings. Women make a huge amount of consumer decisions, and that's the way to get to them. That's the first pillar. Netball is probably as good as that as most sports. What we haven't got yet is that second pillar, which is broadcast. So you look at AFL, rugby league, a lot of the money that goes into those sports and goes to the players is from the broadcast deal. So AFL has $1 billion deal, NRL has a multi-$100 million deal. Rugby union's the same. Although I read today they may be insolvent in a few years' time. So for us, it's the broadcast is the next challenge. Corporations want to be involved with netball. Now we're going to get broadcasters on board. And there is still a degree of a bit of laziness in some media organisations. They know footy, they know rugby league, they know AFL, they know soccer. It's their sport. It's blokes that run the thing. They don't quite understand netball. But the first, I think, media organisation that really does understand it and gets into it is going to reap the rewards. That's our next challenge. Fingers crossed someone does it.
Liz, if I can then finish up, I know that everybody wants to...
Where are you? Oh, there.
You're very proud of your achievements, and you should be. Obviously, you like being a leader. You're commentating now. Is there a future in coaching for Liz Ellis?
No. No. Coaching ruins your good looks, and I don't have that many to start with, so I'm not going to coach. I've got a business running coaching clinics for kids in the school holidays. In the April and July school holidays, I coach 2,000 kids a year. I love it. But I love coaching kids at that age because they don't have their own opinions yet and they think I know everything, which suits me. You start coaching senior kids and, I'm being facetious. The thing that doesn't make me want to coach is that you have to have a level of detail that I don't think I'm passionate enough to get to as a coach. And I think my skills are better off suited to, I guess, administration. So at some point I'd like to be on the board, maybe the chair of Netball Australia, and that's where my skills are. I was a solicitor for a number of years, so I've got that sort of qualification. I can give back to my sport in other ways. And there are some really great players out there who will become great coaches, and I don't need to compete with them because I know that their skills in that regard are stronger than mine. Yeah, at the back. Yay, girl! I was a really good time manager, but it did come to a head 14 years ago, just before the Sydney Olympics. So I was working as a solicitor full-time. I was working for a firm called Cause Chambers Westgarth in the city. I was working in property and infrastructure. And I was trying to train, and through that time we had the World Cup, and I was trying to do both. I thought I could be superwoman, play netball, make partner, the usual story. And it got to the point where I felt that I was giving 100% to neither of them. So if I left work on time to get to training, then I'd have a boss or a client who was unhappy, wasn't getting the work done. If I did all my work, I'd get to training late and have a team and a coach who were unhappy. So for me, it was about decisions, and that was a really tough decision to make. I could stay with, my career that I'd been to uni for and worked hard for and paid me a lot of money, or I could follow my passion that paid me no money. And I thought, I've got to follow my passion. I don't want to be one of those people who looks back with regret, so I followed my passion. My passion was netball. I figured out the best way to earn money was to start up a business somehow involved in netball, and that's how my coaching clinic business started, because I figured that was a way, and it's been going now for 18 years, and it's gone from a small probably to a medium-sized business. I've got about 30 employees. I've got someone who runs it for me. It runs itself. It's a great little business. But that came out of me following my passion. And juggling it, sometimes you can juggle, but any time you're juggling anything, something's got to give. There's something that you're not doing well. And I didn't want to rip off, I was being charged out at a couple of $100 an hour. I didn't want to rip off my clients. I didn't want to annoy my boss. I didn't want to let my teammates and my coaches down, so I made a decision. And that's probably the simplest thing. And I just followed my passion. That might be it. Thanks. You guys are great. You're so much better than Melbourne. Thanks, Rob. Thank you.